Well, Team BMC at the front there, followed by Team Movistar. Then a little bit further back, you can just see Tinkoff, and with the bandages there, I just spotted Alberto Contador. That, Bob, is because on the run-in towards the finish yesterday, inside of the final kilometer, Alberto Contador just going around one of the final corners, he came down hard.
And I think that's caused by Bagadonas from AG2R shooting the gutter there and going to the inside and bumping Tosh van der Sande from Lotto. Watch the AG2R rider now try to improve his position, and now he bumps Tosh van der Sande, who takes Contador down. And Contador, going at high speed there, has had so much bad luck in Grand Tours, in the Tour de France and now in the Vuelta again. Horrible bad luck to Contador, and he comes across the line in tatters just 500 meters from the end. So bad tactics perhaps by Contador, bad luck as well, but maybe better to let the sprinters take over at that point. You're always going to risk crashing in the finale.
Yes, well, this is what Alberto Contador said on how he feels after that crash. The day after a crash, you never know, and I'm going to have to wait a few kilometers to know. The wind is supposed to be tailwind and crosswind, and I must be careful. That's why I train on the rollers before the start. Since 80% of the crashes take place in the last 3 kilometers, it would be good if the UCI, the International Cycling Union, was to neutralize the race at that point. Well, there's a lot of discussion about that. Alberto Contador did benefit from that 3-kilometer rule yesterday, by the way, because he was given the same time as the rest of the main field. So we're going to take a slight break as we look here at Darwin Atapuma, getting himself back into the main field with his teammate there, Sammy Sanchez. On the other side of the break, we'll talk a little bit more about Alberto Contador. The right-hand side in the white jersey, but coming back to that Contador situation, Alberto Contador was a little bit critical, but I think he was in the wrong place at the end of the race. He shouldn't really be getting involved with sprinting.
I don't agree with that entirely, because GC contenders have to be mindful of gaps that open up in the final 3 kilometers of any sprint stage in the Grand Tours. If they were to take the time as well as extend the safety barrier. So for a GC rider, and that's why you see the teams up there in the finale all the time, if you're involved with a crash and lose time because of that, you get the same time as the stage winner. But if a gap opens up, and that's why there's a desperation, that's why there's a scramble between the sprinters and the GC riders, because nobody wants to get caught behind the gap. If they were to take the time, and I think it's idiotic that they don't, why not take the GC time? Then the GC riders can filter back, and the sprinters and the sprinter teams can take over. Stage wins in Grand Tours are what pay the bills for everybody but about 4 or 5 guys in professional cycling. Chris Froome, Nairo Quintana, Alberto Contador. And because they have to be at the same line of riders as the stage winner, there's a lot of pressure every day to be there. So even though Contador didn't necessarily need to be in the top 10 riders going into the last corner, he did need to be up there the final 3Ks. Until they take the time at 3Ks to go for the GC, you're going to see those crashes that affect the GC contenders, and that's bad for the sport of cycling.
Well, I don't know, Bob, because if they were to do it, then you'd have a bunch of guys who would actually sit up at 3 kilometers to go, because there's no need to get involved in the sprinting. And to win the Tour de France, as we see Darwin Atapuma here at the back end of the main field, he'll mind his way up to the front end of the main field. He's just come back after a nature break. But to finish my thought, Bob, the fact of the matter is you'd have a bunch of guys sitting up with 3 kilometers to go. If you want to win the Tour de France, you've got to be good at everything. You've got to be good on the flat, you've got to be good in the mountains, and you've also got to fight for your position in the bunch sprints.
Well, this day and age in professional cycling, and I agree with you, you have to be good at everything to win the Tour, but that's a little bit different than mixing it with the stage winning the sprint teams. When you have Edix on the front leading it out for Marcel Kittel, for example, in the Tour de France, and Dimension Data leading it out for Mark Cavendish, and Tinkoff leading it out for Peter Sagan, and Lotto Soudal leading out for Andre Greipel. You got way too many guys, and believe me, nobody in the Tour de France is going slow the last 3Ks of a sprint stage. You are always going to have the peloton pretty close together. So even if you sit up at exactly 3Ks to go in and coast all the way to the line, you'll still be right near the front of the bike race. And I don't think it's to be honest, not an indication of your talent as a bike racer, whether or not you take incredible risks as a GC rider to stay near the front with the sprinters.
But wouldn't that disadvantage a guy like Alejandro Valverde, for example, who is always there and thereabouts in the bunch sprints, and he's looking for that time. He's looking for that as an advantage to grab a second here or a second there. And that's why he's up in second place in the overall standings.
That's one way, okay, to reward more heads-up riders, maybe less risk-averse riders. So maybe if you're the first rider in the top 20, you get a time bonus for if you stay near the front of a couple of seconds here and there, or you prorate it based on how far you are ahead of a guy that has sat up with 3Ks to go. There is a way to do it. There is the way to make it fair, but the current system is not fair for the GC contenders and makes for a much more dangerous race. And if Alberto Contador is unable to recuperate from those injuries, we lose one of our overall contenders. And that's a sad way for the rest of the Vuelta a Espana to unfold. Contador should be right in there without any damage.
Still Team BMC setting the pace at the front. Well, Bob, I'll tell you one thing. If that was the case and they took the time at 3 kilometers to go, I don't think I'd be too excited about commentating on the 40 guys that go forward when everybody else sits up.
Okay, well, I think it would still be pretty exciting. The sprint stages are always thrilling.
Quick look down there at the monastery of San Miguel.